Alright, welcome back. Now you guys have requested that I go back to the Machariel and to test this ship out with the new implant and with artillery cannons. You know, this kind of brings back memories from when I used the Machariel for PvE in null space like 4 or 5 years ago. But nowadays I use this ship for PvP. And honestly, the Machariel can do both PvE and PvP. You can actually have a build that can do both at the same time. Although today I'll be covering some of the builds that I used to run on the ship, a new one, and of course I'll be testing it out with the artillery cannons. Now when it comes to the stats, well, it's still the good old Machariel that we all know. The ship's been the same for a long time, although the new implants have made the Machariel truly a very scary ship. It wasn't really it wasn't the case, it was always the case, but the Machariel is nowadays a very scary little ship. And of course, this is the usual PvE build that I usually have when I'm doing PvE with the Machariel. Full DPS, webs, a Nosferatu. I have no idea why I have a micro wardrift there. I don't really use a micro wardrift on the Machariel except for PvP, so I'll just quickly replace that with an afterburner. After all, afterburners are just, you know, very useful when it comes to maintaining capacitor and also giving your ship some speed. Alright, there we go. A afterburner, and this is basically my usual PvE build for the Machariel. And these are the rigs, very cheap rigs on this ship. Didn't really, I tried integrations, I tried defense integrations, but that didn't really work to my expectations, so I usually just keep the Machariel as a DPS ship. Usually it just works and I don't really have to change it. 4.1 thousand DPS, the nano core is only a golden core without any attributes, and the golden core is still bugged. Can't click on it, it just doesn't want to open the window when you have the golden core installed. Now for the implants, well, the Barrage and the artillery cover are the two implants that you have available now. Barrage is good for PvP, artillery cover is good for extended battles and for PvE. It's the long-awaited PvE implant for cannons that we kind of lacked. I mean, the Barrage for PvE is kind of weird to use. It does have DPS, but for a very short amount of time, while the artillery cover is more sustained. I haven't bought the implant for myself yet on the live server, but maybe it will happen again. I'm trying to sell some ships in order to buy the implant, but obviously no one wants to buy my ships. So yeah, my ships are unfortunately built in such a way that they're not really market friendly when it comes to the cost. Although maybe I'll find someone who wants to buy them, but we will see. Maybe not. In any case, let me show you the DPS outputs of this little ship. Now the artillery cover is very good because it does have fantastic sustained DPS, and it also does kind of work like the high power coil in a way. I mean, it has about the same, not the same direct effect, but very similar in how it works. 6.7 thousand DPS, 8,000 DPS with second. With the third gyro stabilizer we have 8.9, almost 9,000 DPS, and we have 9.4 thousand DPS when all 4 gyro stabilizers are active. Honestly, really good. And this is more or less the sustained version. And honestly, I've noticed that the artillery cover does do more damage than the Barrage when you are shooting at a target, even if the Barrage is engaged. For some reason this implant just does more damage, or maybe I messed up something, but when it comes to burst DPS, high burst, the Barrage is just unbeatable. That's just terrifying to say the least. But of course, that's just the paper value. With Barrage, artillery cannons are definitely, if you have a high level Barrage implant, artillery cannons are the way to go, since You will lose DPS because of server ticks if you use autocans. I've done a lot of testing with that, and level 30 with the Barrage is about the limit where you can apply all the DPS, or most of the DPS that you have with the autocans. Above 30, artillery cans are the way to go. Well, of course, I mean, you can use autocans, but you might lose some DPS because of server ticks, and of course, your own ping can also affect how much the game will count, how much DPS you actually apply to your target. It's a very weird calculation, to be honest, and I really think that they should improve the servetics in order for more calculations to be able to be achieved, so that, you know, we don't lose DPS because of the servetics. But in a way, it also kind of balanced things out, I guess. But in any case, let me show you, just for fun, I want to show you the horrifying DPS that you can get on paper. Although this DPS doesn't really mean much with Barrage implant, it means that you have high DPS, yeah, but in real use, in combat, honestly, I haven't really noticed that it does that much. It doesn't do like 50%. If it does 50% of that, it's already, you know, really good, really solid. But in most cases, yeah, 17,000 DPS without the Gyrostellarus active, which honestly is horrifying when you look at it. It's very scary, but that doesn't get applied to the target. You are missing like 80% of that DPS because of the servetics. And of course, just for the lols and just for the giggles, let's just turn on all the Gyrostellarus with second one, 24,000 DPS, with the third one, 27,000 DPS, and with the last one, almost 30,000. Was this buffed? It used to be like 25, now it's 29. I haven't really changed much on this ship. Well, that's lovely DPS for sure. Imagine if this is actually applied to your target. That would be so stupid if it actually were applied to the target. It's actually a, I guess, a saving factor that it doesn't apply all that because of the servetics. It would be hilarious if it did. Right, now, artillery Machariel. I have friends who use a build like this for sniping. I have friends who use the Machariel with artillery for PvP as well, and honestly, it works. It just works really well. Kite Machariel fleet, for example, is one thing that is very scary. You can actually do the same thing with a sniper implant. Can have some pretty nasty alpha, and it is as fast as a cruiser, so you can go from point A to point B in a flash and just spit artillery shells at your target without much of a problem. And this is why the Machariel is such a popular ship. It just works, to, you know, say the least. It just works. Now, for PvE, besides PvP, artillery cans can theoretically also be used for PvE, although the main problem with artillery cans is the long cycle time. Basically, they have like sometimes 15-20 seconds cycle time between shots, and you know, that can definitely feel maybe boring, but the alpha damage is truly good. I found artillery cans quite useful when I was clearing those special drone sites that were out couple weeks ago, and I was able to do stuff that carriers were required with a Machariel that was built to be a sniper. It works really well, and you can even get up to 250-300 kilometer range easily with about 150 kilometers stable range. So you can really make this a long range sniper to work really well. The one problem with that is, again, the very long cycle time that artillery cans have. They don't have a cycle time as fast as lasers, for example, or any other long range weapon system. but they have alpha damage. And you know, in PvE, when you have very high alpha damage, it will wreck a frigate or cruiser in one hit, but it's kind of wasted damage since you will do the same amount of damage to multiple ships with the other faster firing weapons, or with lasers, or even with the other long range weapons. You will do 50,000 damage to 5 ships, which means 5 kills. With this ship you fire 50,000 alpha damage to a frigate, and the frigate takes 5,000 damage, and 45,000 damage is basically wasted, and you have to wait like 20 seconds for the shot to be charged again. So that's, you know, a thing that I kind of don't like about artillery cannons, but you know, that's just how they work, and it's also the same thing in EVE Online, so I can't really complain about that. They have high damage, high alpha damage, and they just slap. It doesn't mean that they're bad PvE weapons. Again, in certain situations, when you're doing some special content, I mean, even in wormhole space, long range probably is the way to go with battleships. And the Machariel can pull some very good speed. Besides, you know, having good alpha, it will have some decent speed to it, so chasing this ship down can be quite a tricky thing to do, especially if the Machariel is, you know, aware of what they're doing. And if you land with a frigate 150 km away from Machariel and it starts locking you, just warp. Don't play with that, because the Machariel will just slap your ship. Even if you pilot around, these things have been improved to such an extent that you can just snipe anything with a Machariel nowadays. Maybe if you have like tracking disruptors, that will mess up a Machariel's day for sure. An RB or something, RB can definitely mess up faction battleships tracking with cannons, with turrets, with any turret-based weapon actually. So there are counters, but it is still a very nasty ship to fight. And with the new skills, with the new general units, with the new plans, everything that's been added, everything basically improved most of the ships. Machariel has definitely been drastically improved, and you know, it's still a, well, I mean, it's always been a solid ship, but when we compare the faction battleships, somehow the Machariel is starting to be up on top. No, I wouldn't say that it's on top, and I wouldn't say that it's a best ship. I mean, every best is basically coming from player's personal perspective or player's personal experience with a certain ship or weapon system. For some players, a Vindicator is the best. For some, the Rattlesnake. I mean, we all are different. We all have different ships that we fly, so you know. But Machariel definitely been improved, that's for sure. And used to be, wasn't always the case. There was a time when, I mean, when I got this ship for the first time, like 5 years ago, it wasn't really classified as being that good. At the time, Balgorn was really good. Vindicator was also above the Machariel in a way. Well, at least based on player feedback, Machariel at the time was kind of, you know, the lower mid-end when it comes to faction battleships, and the Rattlesnake used to be the worst. Kind of funny how things have changed. I still remember when the Rattlesnake was like 1.5 billion on the market, it was very cheap. That was when the Rattlesnake was outclassed. There was a time when the Rattlesnake was outclassed, but you know, those times are gone now. The Rattlesnake is pretty good nowadays. If you managed to snatch Rattlesnake back then for like a billion ISK or 1.5 billion, I mean, it was like a faction cruiser was more expensive than a Rattlesnake back then. It was very silly, and if you managed to buy a ship back then, you made bank, because these things are now nasty. Rattlesnakes are so good nowadays. I still kind of wish that we did get those Gecko drones for the Rattlesnake. I think they would be really good. Maybe, I mean, maybe we got some integrated drones and overall drones. I mean, what am I saying? Drones are still the most powerful weapon in the game right now. Why would I want to buff drones even more? I almost forgot how nasty drones are. Someone asked me someone asked me for my opinion. What's like the most broken weapon system in the game? Drones, fighter drones. They're the most broken weapon system in the game. Not because the weapon system itself. I mean, they have their strengths and weaknesses, but because of the implant, bomber tactic just messed everything up. I still have no idea why that implant hasn't been changed. In one aspect, I actually know why they don't touch that implant, and it's a pretty stupid reason. That the bomber tactic is still the same. Unfortunately, it does make sense why they're not changing it, and it's difficult. They made that implant in such a way that if you nerf it, it's not going to be good at all. Like, when you do the math and when you compare it to the other implants, it's not going to be good. Well, it's going to be good, but it's not going to be nearly as good as some of the other ones that are available. But if you don't change it, it's going to be completely busted, and it is completely busted. So that when you think about things like that, it kind of makes sense why they haven't touched that implant. And I still hope. I mean, I know that implant definitely did cause them some issues, and now it's a bit too late to just remove it. If they remove it, it's going to break all hell loose. That's just how it goes. Imagine if they just remove the implants. It's going to be like world war in the official Discord. So yeah, they don't want that to happen, obviously. So the lesser evil, I guess, is just to keep it as it is. Although I would say that's not the way to go, because everything can be balanced out in a way. But we will see. I mean, if they do change every implant in the game, which there are some indications that I've seen that might actually happen, then maybe all the nasty DPS is going to go down. But for now, I have personally no idea what's going to happen with those implants.
We are under attack.
When it comes to the other implants, well, while they're still strong, they're nerfed. Well, most of them have been. Like, they lost like 2/3 or a third or a half of their DPS from the original release. I mean, Machariel used to have a 55,000 DPS. It lost more than half, so still room for losing more, I guess. But it's the nerfs so far. Well, the overall nerfs in a grand scale from the original release up until now is about what I would say I would expect. I expected maybe a bit more in some cases, but with small steps, it's getting there for sure. But we will see what's going to happen more. I'm still personally, this is coming from a personal experience and from my personal perspective. I'm not a fan of implants, honestly. I'm not a fan of them, even after all these years with implants being in the game. I still don't like them. I mean, I have some of them, but I don't like to use them that much. I still prefer the old school way of how things used to work. Implants messed up so much. That's just what I personally think about it. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, then that's good. If I am wrong, then that's good, because then everything is okay, I guess. If I'm wrong. And as I mentioned, so far the alpha damage has been pretty good on the Machariel. I mean, we all expected that, and I don't think anyone was surprised to see high alpha damage with artillery cannons. It's just what artillery cannons like to do. They like to slap. Now, am I going to change my Machariel for a artillery cannon PvP build? That's a good question. That's a very good question. I still enjoy autocannons a lot, and I don't have a need to go with artillery right now. I mean, I don't really honestly have no need for the artillery, since I engage most of my targets at close distances with the Machariel. because, you know, stabs and stuff, I have to have 3 scramblers usually for this ship when I land at 0, so the autocans are just the way to. If I had the Deathwish core, maybe I would try R30, but unfortunately, obviously, I don't have any expensive nano cores. Well, I have maybe one, but I don't use it because I sold the ship for it. But nowadays, if you want to use like long range disruptors, you have to have Deathwish cores because stabs have also kind of contributed to the stagnation, or should I say, what would be the right word? Not stagnation, but oh my god, it's late and I can't think. I'm so sleepy. You wouldn't believe how sleepy I am. What was the word that I was about to use? Oh well, let's just say one of the reasons why builds are, let's say, boring. Yeah, I think boring might be one of the accurate words. And when I say boring, well, 99.99% of PvP builds are scramblers and webs. That's it. No Evor. Well, you have Evor, but that's in a fleet. And you know, I'm coming from a solo perspective. For a solo experience, 1,000,000 points, 1 web, and that's about what you can expect from most, you know, from most PvP builds. Even in nullsec, I'm starting to see the same thing. The days where you had a bunch of modules and you have, you know, some Evor, you have some points where tactics mattered, implants and not implants but stabs kind of taking away that, because now if you have like Nosferatus and stuff, you miss the target. If you have tracking disruptors, painters, you miss the target because you just cannot hold the target with 1 point anymore. You can, but usually it's a cheap ship and I don't like I mean, depends, I guess. If I see a cheap ship, I use a cheap ship as, you know, as my ship, so that it's a bit more fair. And honestly, such fights are ridiculously fun. More fun than dropping a Machariel with 75,000 points on a Dominix with 75,000 stabs, for example. It's honestly much more fun to fly small ship, or well, small ship, low tier ship versus low tier ship is more fun than a normal ship versus a normal ship, because the small ships don't have stabs and the fights are more natural and it's more fair for both parties. And it's still funny when you see a Caracal with 50 stabs. I actually seen a Caracal that had like, I think 2 Warp Core 3, my apologies, Warp Core 4, 2 of them, and all stabs in low slots. That was just one of the most weird builds I've ever seen, and I think if I don't forget, it will be featured in one of the next videos, because I just have to share that build. It's absolutely insane what builds I've started to see float around. But in any case, the Machariel with artillery cans, honestly, a very fun boat, a very fun idea, and it is a valuable idea. If you like to use the Machariel in this way, it's honestly a very interesting tactic. I like it. And I still haven't bought a second Machariel because I'm trying to save ISK, but I want a second Machariel and maybe a third one with different builds, because I want to retire my original Machariel, because I'm still using that old Machariel from a long time ago, and I think that ship will live for a very long time, because I'm trying to keep that thing alive for as long as possible. But with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this little run with the Machariel. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments down below. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.